I am Chris Turner, and I would put deliciously brewed milky tea in my immigrant jam.
Hello, everyone. We are back. It's a beautiful day at Immigrant Jam, the podcast with me, your host, Lucie Pohl. Our guest today is from the old country. Yes, England. Yes, Britain. You're right. From the island. That's right. He has been on the Colbert Show. He has an amazing YouTube channel. He's a regular at the Comedy Cellar. And what? He has an upcoming residency in Las Vegas with Cirque du Soleil, the one and only freestyle comedian rapper, Mr. Chris Turner. Hello. Holy lordy. I'm so excited to have you here.
I'm very excited to be here, and I'm so excited to have the immediate dichotomy of that enthusiasm with the introduction, whereas any podcast in England or any comedy club in England would be like, please welcome Chris Turner. There would be no crowing of achievements. There would be no, he's so talented. It'd be like, he's here tonight. Please welcome Chris Turner.
Yeah.
So it makes me feel so uncomfortable when people are like, these are all the things you've done. You're like, yeah, I just tell jokes. It's okay. I'm sorry.
Well, this is part of your path to becoming an American, unfounded, unsupported enthusiasm.
Yeah, and
that's
I
something
like
you can
it.
practice.
It just will take time to
Yep.
absorb it into my own self, and then I'll go back home and I'll be like, hello, everyone, what a beautiful day, and they'll spit on me.
They'll be like, what the hell is wrong with you?
Exactly.
I mean, I'm German, and Germans are very similar.
Mm-hmm.
You know, being too friendly makes people suspicious.
Definitely.
They're like, there's something wrong with this person.
Yeah, but it's I would say that the British accent in America is very powerful, because whenever I talk, people just immediately are like, oh, we want to listen to what he has to say because it's definitely intelligent.
Yes.
You do not have a German accent in America. Do you feel if you were to do a German accent, people would be like, wow, we should listen to this person?
No, I think because of my New York accent, people say they want to listen to me.
Oh, because they're worried
like,
you're going to take their
this
things.
lady's going to punch me in the face if I don't listen. No, I don't think the German accent elicits people wanting to listen. It just makes people want to run away. Mm-hmm. I think more than anything.
I think so.
You know?
I think so. I think I must acknowledge that the British accent is a huge superpower over here. I say, on stage, I tell people this. I'm like, if Fauci had been British, the pandemic would have been done, because he would have said, everybody, please stay home and take your vaccines when they are available. And Americans would have gone, we'll do what the smart man says. Instead, he was like, hey, everybody, put this in your arm. It's safe for you. I was like, oh, no, Grandad.
I love it. That's so true. You're from Manchester.
Manchester, England, the Northwest, the UK's second city, unless you're from Birmingham, in which case you think that's the second city, and it's definitely not.
Well, okay, that's interesting. I have no idea what that means. All I know is that I read all these quotes from people from Manchester who says nothing matters except Manchester. Like Gallagher.
Oh, yeah, from Oasis.
Oh, from Oasis?
Yeah,
he says nothing matters.
Massive, tools. Aren't they?
Excuse me, we have a massive Oasis fan base here.
Oh, no, that doesn't change the fact that they're good musicians. There are loads of people who are great musicians, but then they're also arseholes, and I don't think anyone... That's a fun change, isn't it? British people... I love how we say arsehole, and I get so annoyed when you watch Netflix and someone will say arsehole, and they write it ASS hole on the closed captions.
Instead of arsehole?
Yeah, and it's so different. Asshole is different. We can't say asshole. It sounds horrible.
Arse is so much better than ass.
It's so much better.
Arse. So I dated a Scottish guy once, and he had this show, and it was a funny show, but there was one part in it where he goes, and then she died in his arms, right? And he was doing the show, and there was all these important people there.
Sounds like a really funny show.
I know. We all make mistakes. Okay, look, we all make mistakes. So there was all these important people there that night, and he gets up on this chair, and it's the one serious moment, and he goes, and then she died in his arse. And it was the best thing ever. And everybody just went. And then after the show, I went up to him and I was like, oh my God, that is the funniest thing I've ever seen in my life. And he told me I was never allowed to talk to him about it, ever. And we broke up. If you can't laugh about arse,
exactly.
Sorry,
if
goodbye.
You can't. Only you saying it would have been better if he'd said, and then she died In his ass! In his asshole! Up his asshole! Would have been way better. So yeah, from Manchester, we say arse. Yeah, Manchester.
But now you're saying it, and it sounds like you're saying arse, not arse. But I guess because you don't have the Scottish accent, so I don't hear the arse.
No. In Scotland, you really enunciate your words and letters. You can give that rhotic R. It's lovely. Apologies to any Scottish listeners. I will not apologise to Oasis listeners, but Scottish people, I apologise. My accent is
That's a good
cheap
accent.
approximation. To anyone not from Scotland, someone from Scotland would be like, "Where
There's
are you
only,
supposed to be from?"
There's only 6 people in Scotland anyway.
It's very small.
Scotland
it's
is
very
smaller than
but
Jackson Heights.
I want to keep them on my side because I feel like I eventually do want to move back to the UK, but I don't think I want to move back to. Increasingly, I want to move back less to England because it's not the England that I remember it fondly as. Whereas Scotland still has these bastions of left-wing democracy. And so I'm like, and the Scots are like, let's vote for independence, let's rejoin the EU, which is severely unlikely to be allowed to happen ever. And I just go, oh, that would be nice. Like I met my wife in Scotland, I proposed in Scotland, I was married in Scotland.
Wow.
I'm gonna christen my daughter in Scotland. Like I love Scotland.
So
I love
funny.
it so much.
Okay, he loves Scotland.
Yeah, I really do. It's good.
Scotland
Please let me in.
is pretty great. But wait, your wife is American though. Mm-hmm. But she was roaming around Scotland.
She has an Irish passport, so she's allowed to be there. Legal people.
Lots of legal people.
She went to the same university as me a few years afterwards. So I was at the Edinburgh Festival, big performing arts festival for people who don't know, or the Edinburgh Fringe as we call it. And I was invited back by my university improv troupe to do a show. I am performing, and I see this girl, and I'm like, she's performing as well, right? You're not in the audience. I'm not like just scoping them out. I was like, she's hot and she's funny and she's smart. How is this possible?
Right.
And then, so we met there. And then a few years later when I proposed, I did it there because I was like, oh, all our friends are still here. We'd met because we'd moved here by the time. And then, we got married up in Inverness because we both love Scotland and have enough family and friends there that it was a sensible place to do it.
But so you just said that you plan on moving back to the UK or Scotland. So you're an immigrant here. You moved here not too long ago, right?
I moved here 2016, 2017, but I moved to New York 2021. Right. I was in LA for a long time.
Okay. Got it. So you're planning to just be a semi-permanent alien.
Well, I think to have a green card, you have to say that you are going to become a citizen.
Yes.
And I am.
No.
That is the plan.
No, you don't have to become a citizen. You just have to spend more than 6 months out of the year here.
So because of that awkward thing where if you go away for some time, you then have to renew it. And getting a green card is already so expensive and so difficult. And that's for me. Like, it was hard for me to get a green card, so I can't imagine what it's like for other people. Like, it was just... I mean, also it was during Trump, so it was he was actively cutting everyone in the workforce. So it took a year and a half to get a green card, and
that's not too bad.
It didn't used to be though. It used to be like 6 months, and I plan on becoming a citizen just because that makes it easier. Then I can just come and go as I please. But yeah, eventually, I grew up in the UK. My wife grew up a lot of her life in the UK. She loves it there, so she would like for us to be back. And
so you feel at home there. You don't. Do you feel at home here at all?
No, I feel very at home here.
Oh, you do?
I feel very at home here, but...
in New York or in the U.S.?
Oh, in New York, much more. Because New York is like London just amped up.
Yeah, I always think...
LA was so strange. LA is not like anywhere.
LA is very weird. That's true. I always think New York is like London's younger brother who's like doesn't have his shit together and like, is kind of a fuck up. And then like London comes to town and went to law school and, got married and had kids. But everybody loves New York.
Yeah, I love London. I lived there for like 3 years, and that was the plan, was to stay in London. But then things changed, and I was like, Brexit happened. And I was like, I don't like this country anymore. Let's leave. Let's come here. And I went to LA because at the time everyone was saying, you're a comedian, go to LA or New York.
Right.
And someone said to me, you go to New York to get good, and then you go to LA once you're good. Right. And I was like, oh, I'm already pretty good. So I went to LA, and everyone was like, you ain't good enough.
Humble over there in the UK.
So I went back. The plan was always move to New York, and one of the, you can't say benefits, like one of the effects of the pandemic was because everyone left New York became slightly more affordable to live in. And so we could
we
found a place and we moved here.
Yeah. Do you feel like an immigrant here, though? Do you feel that you're different? Do you feel like doesn't really matter?
Is it going to ruin the show if I say no?
No, not at all.
Not at all.
I ruined the show, if anything.
Because I feel because New York feels like London in the sense that everyone is from everywhere. London and Manchester, and I think this was years ago when I learned this fact. It was at the Manchester Museum. It was the Museum of Manchester, and it was just a sign. It was like, Manchester has, at least as of the last census, one person from every country or recognized territory in the world lives in Manchester. There's at least one person from each one. Wow. London is missing 2, and then it like listed the 2 places where there wasn't someone in London. And I was always like, yeah, Manchester's got everyone. And then, you come to New York and everyone's from everywhere. And LA very much didn't feel that way. It felt like, everyone is from tiny states and cities in America. They've come to make it. But, you have to be from a little town in Iowa to come here because you're the pretty girl at the diner who's going to be a star. So I feel much more at home here because it does just feel like London or Manchester. It was much more like the places I was used to.
But do you need your little British English things? Like you said, you would put a sweet milky tea in your immigrant jam or something like that.
I have.
Do you need that? Do you have
the tea that I drank at home? I
a
drink
Union
here.
Jack
I bring
pillow?
It over. No, because that's now a symbol of like right-wing nationalism. It used to be that just the English flag,
really?
the flag of
oh
St.
my God!
George.
I have a welcome mat that my Scottish ex-boyfriend gave me.
That's fine for you. It's
that's fine for me.
You.
Okay.
Yeah. If you are...
It has a swastika on it, too. Is that okay?
Oh, dear.
Oh, no.
Oh, no.
Oops.
The English flag, the flag of St. George, used to be the thing that if it was flying from your house anytime outside of a major football tournament, and I mean soccer for any Americans, it meant that you were a little bit like, hey, why are they coming over here and taking our jobs? And then it became, post-Brexit, the Union Jack, or the Union flag. It's only called the Union Jack if you're flying it from a ship.
Really? Holy shit.
Yep.
See, British people are fucking smart.
And American people, the Union Jack sounds like what Lincoln called his first wank after he beat the South. You get it? And beat the South is what he called his second. That's how you cleverly put in material to a podcast chat.
He's here all week, people.
If you have that on your house now, that means you're very pro-Brexit. And if you're pro-Brexit, it's usually because you're anti-immigrant. So the Union Jack went from a cute thing on your mug. But if you have it here, it's kind of okay. People see it as he's British. So I still have my comforts. I have the tea brand that I used to use in the UK.
Which one is it?
Yorkshire tea.
Yorkshire
Gold specifically.
Okay. Can you get that here in New York?
You can.
There's a little British store. Have you been there on the Lower East Side?
I've not been there because those places really jack the prices up, and you can just order it online.
So the stinginess you brought over.
Yeah.
You keep.
You got to be careful.
You're not letting go of that.
There are companies that ship me stuff over. Whenever my friends come over, I'm like, hey, bring all this stuff, and they bring me all this.
So tea. What else do you need?
Tea, Maltesers, but the British Maltesers.
Okay.
So they're malted milk balls.
No, I'm kidding.
I should need to pronounce the R more clearly. So that chocolate or candy. Other stuff, less so. I kind of embrace the Americanness of things, but I did do, when I first moved to LA, a big taste test of milks to figure out what milk would make my tea taste most British.
Shut up.
And we found
so funny.
That Trader Joe's cheapest milk is the one that is the closest to British milk, which is good to know that the cheapest, shittest milk.
He's sponsored by Trader Joe's. Don't believe him.
I wish I was sponsored by TJ's. People in Trader Joe's in LA, that was our local store. And it was a store that frequently had like horrendous things happening to it. But the people who worked there were so happy. And I asked one of them, I was like, why are you guys so happy? And they were like, they pay us so much money.
Really?
I was like, that's all it takes.
Wait, did you make this a YouTube video, the taste test, the milk taste test?
No, that's too
YouTubey.
YouTubey.
Such a good YouTube.
I know,
that
but
is
it's
YouTubey,
so
but I
YouTubey.
would have wanted to see that.
Hey guys, today we're finding out what's the most British milk. Click subscribe.
Hello. They give you different accents.
Yeah, this is the milk the Queen drinks. What?
You're really good at accents. You're a freestyle, a rapper, or as they say in the UK, rapper.
Yeah.
No, I don't know.
I mean, increasingly, there's people who are watching Top Boy, the popular Netflix series set in East London estate.
Oh, is that about gay people?
It's not. And if you said that to any of the Carrots and Top Boys, they would shank you right up.
Shank me.
Yeah, and it's gangs and life on an East London estate, and it's an East London accent which I can't particularly approximate that well, but it's I've seen American
stuff. No.
Yeah, blood. Like, don't even. I can't. That's terrible.
One.
That's so bad.
No, that's so good.
What are you talking about? Blood, I'll shank you up, right? Look, I can't even do it, and this is so terrible. But there's a bunch of comedians at the Comedy Cellar who've been watching it and so are talking in that accent. And one Matt Richards, whenever he brings me up on stage, will do it in an English accent.
That's great.
And it freaks people out. Because also then I walk on and I'm like, hello, I do not sound like that. I lived in West London for some time. And it's a very fancy place. West London is...
So wait, but take me back to the olden days in Manchester. We're talking 1992. I don't know. You're a little boy in Manchester.
A little 3-year-old I would have been.
and you're
toddling
watching...
around the mean streets.
You're watching Tupac. I don't know.
Yeah.
You're obsessed with rap, and you go.
It was probably age 12 when it did that. I then later found out when we moved to LA, I lived a block or two away from where Biggie was shot, which made it sound to anyone like I lived in a real rough area. It was just he was in a really nice neighborhood when he got shot.
Yeah,
to clarify
true.
that.
Yeah. So Biggie or Tupac?
Biggie.
Nice. That was the right answer. Thank you.
It's the correct answer.
No, but I mean everybody loves Tupac, but we are in New York.
But I'm also bi-coastal
in
my delights. Like I don't like Nas, and that's not I don't like his voice. And a big part of me for rap was if the voice hits, I could just listen to you forever. And Biggie has the best voice.
The best voice. And as a freestyler, Biggie was one of the most amazing freestylers ever.
I didn't know that.
You didn't?
No.
Really?
No.
You didn't? You haven't heard his freestyles?
No.
Oh, you must.
I need to check them out.
Oh my God, they're so good.
Yeah.
So
one thing about freestyle for me, I don't watch any other freestylers.
Why? Because you think it'll corrupt
you don't want to absorb what they do. So you want to.
I love that you're like
now. This
I
is like
just
now.
don't want to start being like Biggie, so I don't watch.
Just start really inhaling between everything. Like when I started getting into rap, I'd watch stuff, but also like my mum didn't like that I was listening to rap music, so I'd have to be kind of. So also, what am I watching? Like, there's no videos. When you're like 12 years old, like, what are you seeing these things on? How are you watching Biggie freestyles? Like, there's no YouTube or anything. So back then, you'd watch stuff and be like, oh, great, but like, ever since it kind of became a job, you watch less of it. In the same way that it's hard to watch, I don't know, you worry when you watch stand-up that you're going to absorb a bit and then make it your own bit, Which I used to write jokes like that. When I was a one-liner comedian, you'd watch Jeselnik, and I'd watch his setups and I'd try and guess the punchline. And sometimes you'd be way off. Sometimes you would guess the punchline, but sometimes you'd guess the punchline and it was not that. And so I had jokes in my early sets that were like, the setup was another comedian's. Then I'd given my own punchline.
I love it. You made it better.
I think there was a Jeselnik joke that was this girl's dad wouldn't let us sleep together, which is a shame. And there's my ad was the punchline was, which is a shame because he's very sexy.
Nice.
Right? And like that wasn't his punchline. He said something else. And I was like, oh, cool. You can write jokes. You don't have to come up with the setup.
That's true.
Great. That'd be a good concept show if you did a show where it was just other people's setups but your punchlines.
We just had an idea for a show called Polish the Turd, where you have to like take like bad setups and make them funny.
I think that's a good idea. My friend Dougie, who is Scottish, did a whole show where he it had a running theme of the joke adoption service, which is like if comedians have a joke, he's Scottish, that's the accent. Yeah. If comedians have a joke that's it's really good, but they're not good. You have to take it and give it to a better comedian. Feel like you are murdering this joke, but a good comedian could do a lot with this.
This is a good idea. Person. Mike is saying that there was a show like that.
There was a show called The Setup, which was they would put setups to jokes on like a screen without you knowing what it is, and then you had to like come up with a set. But a lot of them were like sometimes classic setups or other setups, which was a fun.
But you had to guess what the actual joke was.
No, you had to make the joke. So they give you the setup, and then you have to come up with your own.
I would do this at Christmas. We do cracker jokes, and which is Christmas cracker jokes, not white people jokes.
Yeah, right. Nice. That's what they do in Britain.
Everyone would read the setups, and then they'd be like, Chris, and then I would come up with a punchline. And most of the time, it's the most obvious punchline.
Yeah.
So, what does snowmen ride? bicycles. But sometimes you'd get
I have
a
no
setup,
logic in my brain, so
and
I can't do
then
that.
you'd come out with one that, and they'd go, no, but that was better. Yeah, this one's just blah blah blah. So
That'd be like a family game.
yeah,
So were people in your family funny?
my dad's very funny.
Yeah.
And my mum is, I guess, unintentionally funny. Yeah, but apart from
So-
that, I'm my sister. My sister's very clever, but I will be kind to her and say that she's not hilarious. She's very funny to her friends. I spoke to her on the phone today, and now I feel really bad. I feel like I'm just like putting her on blast. Like,
No, we
you're
love
so
your
unfunny.
sister.
No, she told me a great story. She invited her friend's mum round, who was a witch, because she wanted to do some witch. She was like, I was in the mood to doing some witch stuff. I'm like, have you moved to LA? What is going on? And she was like, yeah, we just did like a little witch ceremony. So now we're baby witches. So we're going to start a little witch coven.
How old is your sister?
My sister, yeah, I was going to say, yeah, she's 18. No, she's like, no, she's 26.
Oh, okay. Okay.
She's 27. I don't know. Apologies, sister. She won't watch this. She has an important job. She's not indulging in. That is not a slight on this.
This is actually surprise. Your sister's gonna walk in the door right now. It's
That
a
would be
reunion
amazing.
show.
I haven't seen her for a while. Yeah.
So wait, so how did that start? So did you first say I want to be a freestyler? How did you find that? You're good at that.
I've told
then
this
where
story
did the
so many
comedy
times,
come
and it
from?
increasingly just sounds like a made-up story.
Okay.
I was 12 years old, listening to rappers. I'm listening to Dr. Dre, and I'm listening to Eminem, and listening to Andre 3000.
Dr. Dre, by the way,
Exactly.
sounds a lot more like a real doctor.
He
than
does.
an
He's
American.
fully qualified. As I say in my jokes, I thought it was pronounced Dr. E.
Oh.
And the albums and the lyrics I was listening, and I thought that rapping, and you have to understand, 12-year-old white kid, go to a very white private school. The one black guy in our class is the guy that burns me the CDs and gives me them. And I'm listening to them. And I've got no one to talk to about rap because all my friends like Nirvana. Now, I love Nirvana. I love all this rock music, but I've got no one to talk to about them. So I'm just listening. And in my head, rap is, the rules of rap are, it has to rhyme and you're just making it up as you go. And that's not the case, right? These songs are written. So I'm listening to them going, wow, I can't believe like someone can be so like good at making up lyrics? What? How's he coming up with this?
Yeah.
That's the cleverest thing I've ever seen. And I was so into being clever. Like my school was like drilling us with, you have to be the cleverest boy you can be and succeed. And I was like, cool, I'm going to be clever. And to me, this is the demonstration of intelligence, is making up a rap. So for the next 6 years, no friends who like rap. No, my mum didn't like that I listened to it. So I'm not allowed to go and perform or anything. And I played in bands, but like rock music. But I would just make up raps and to myself. And I did like 6 years of practice.
Do you remember one of your earliest raps that you made up?
No, because it's just, you don't
Just like
remember
on the
anything.
spot.
Yeah, you just,
Yeah.
what I would do is I'd be with my friends in Boy Scouts and we would go on hikes. And then they'd go, hey, Chris, make up a song. It wouldn't even be like a rap. It would just be, make up a song. And so you're walking along and you just start making up a rap about the sheep that you see and how Mike at the back wants to have sex with the sheep because he loves sheep.
That's where it was going.
I was talking about my friend Mike, not this Mike. My friend Mike, who we were walking along and he was just like, he's like, I'm so hungry. And then he just starts eating these like lozenges. And we're like, what are these? He's like, I don't know. And they're like strawberry flavored codeine. And he had like a pack of hardcore painkillers and he was just eating them as if they were sweet. So we're like,
Whoa.
Mike, you can't eat those. And he's like, they taste okay. I was like, that's not why you can't eat them. He's fine. I mean,
pretty
he was
gangster.
fine at the time. And so I would just make up these raps. And then when I went to university and started doing improv, we'd play games like called Bust a Line. And so we'd be doing a scene and it would be a serious scene about,
Shakespeare.
Yeah, whatever it is. Yeah. And then at any point, the MC, the host, would just start beatboxing and you had to start rapping whatever you were saying. And I would get like big crowd reactions for this because like I could make sense in it. And then I'd get put in more of the rapping games and start working more on it. Then started putting it in my stand-up. And
So then you started doing stand-up at the same time,
stand-up
sort of
like
as a
6
teenager?
months after improv, like 19 years old, the day after Michael Jackson died. That's how I
Okay.
remember my first gig. And my
No,
first,
that's a good reason
first
to
joke.
start.
Yeah, that's what spurred me on. I was like, the world needs a new entertainer. So I went on stage and I knew that everyone would have done jokes about Michael Jackson and everyone was just doing pedophile jokes. And so which is fair because him. But I walk up to the microphone, my hands in my pockets. I'm like, hey guys, I feel like we've had too many Michael Jackson jokes tonight. So just so you know, this performance will have no Michael Jackson jokes. And then I take the mic out of the stand and I've got one white glove on. And that was my first ever joke. And I was like, that's kind of funny.
So you were always performative.
Yeah.
Because that's a very like that's a visual joke. That's like a performative.
My first ever joke that my dad wrote for me was a German joke. Because it was a drama camp and we had to make all these little shows and we made sketch shows essentially without knowing what that was. And my sketch was I walked on wearing a white lab coat and crazy white hair. And I come on, I'm like, hello, I am Professor von Beerglas. And then everyone would go, what? And I go, sorry, Einstein. Professor Einstein. And it gets a tiny laugh.
Nice.
And that was like the first joke I ever did. And my dad definitely wrote it for me. But that's
beautiful.
Yeah.
That's a good joke. How old were you? 7?
It would be like 8 or 9 maybe. Yeah. And that was what I loved. I loved doing drama. I loved acting. I was
now
like
you
in
have
my
a residency in Vegas.
Yeah.
That's all
where
it
I walk
takes.
on and I go, Einstein! Boo! Your shit. My dad wrote it. It's fine.
But so you did have this experience growing up. I don't know. That's what I kind of heard you, in between the lines saying that you felt kind of isolated and different than other people, right? Because you're saying you didn't have anybody to talk to about your love for rap and
maybe
stuff.
a little bit. I mean, I would say that like in my primary school, so from like 4 till 11, I felt different in that it was just a normal state school. It was like no one there was like that clever. Like the idea was you go to that school, then you'll do a couple more years of education, then you'll have a kid or get a job as an apprentice. And I was fortunate that I had like teachers who saw that I was distracted in class, and it was because I would finish my work and then I would just make mischief. And this is my dad was like expelled from schools because he would finish his work, he was smart, and then he would make trouble and they were like, well, you're a troublemaker, so expelled. And the difference was there was a teacher in my school who'd done some like gifted children training, and she started helping me from like the age of 6 by giving me extra assignments, and I'd have to like research the Romans and write a presentation.
Oh my God.
And I thought this was great. And without that, so like I was like then the second ever kid to go from that school to the private boys' school that I went to. And in that school, everyone there is so clever. And that's a great school. It's Manchester Grammar School. And I love it because it sounds super elite. And it's like, it's super, if you go there, they're like, you need to go to Oxford. You need to go to Cambridge or medical school.
They push you really hard.
But they have this bursary fund where you take an exam. If you pass that exam, you can go to that school. It costs money to go to the school. But if you can't afford it, and 50% of people who go there can't afford it, they pay for your place.
Wow.
So it was established in 1515 with the sole purpose of helping like the poor kids of Manchester get a good education. And that's so
what a
cool.
Concept, huh? People of America, what a concept.
Yeah. And
Amazing.
like one of my favorite things, like one of my like achievements is that my picture is on the wall at the school, and they have like
awesome.
a row of the people who great famous people. There's some really like big sports people, and I'm using non-gendered language for a very gendered school. There's sportsmen and playwrights and authors, and then there's me, and it says comedian, rapper. I'm like, that's cool.
That's great.
And I performed at like their 500th anniversary dinner, which is great because that's a big number. That's so cool just to be like, oh yes, America. How old? Well, my school was around 500 years ago, of course. And I was in Fort Collins in Colorado. They were like, welcome to historic Old Town Fort Collins, established in 1884. And it's a great place.
Yeah.
But it's like 1884. Come on.
I know. I always think
this
that's
ring
funny.
is older than that.
I always think that's funny too, coming from Europe when you drive around America. It's like, welcome to historic
Germany's so old and
established
so beautiful.
in 1904. You're like, what?
Yeah.
But so what did your parents do, or what do your parents do, or what?
My dad grew up running a gas station for his parents, and then became a recruitment consultant, which is you find jobs for people.
Yeah. No.
And
might be American, but I know what that is.
Well, just because like he recruited recruiters. And I remember seeing a comedian do a joke like on stage. It was like, who recruits the recruiters? And everyone laughs. And I was like,
Was it Seinfeld?
My dad.
Like Seinfeld.
Yeah, it was Seinfeld. I saw Seinfeld at a young age. That's why I became so observational. And my mum is a physio and hydrotherapist, so helping like rehab people in water. So I'm always super proud of her because she's like treated people who were told you'll never walk again, and then she got them walking again. I'm like, that's pretty cool.
I'm always fascinated.
Is Jesus
or Moses?
Or did Moses make people walk again?
No, but he walked on water, didn't he?
That was Jesus.
And Moses.
Moses walked through water.
Moses walked through water.
Admittedly,
okay,
much cooler, I think, right?
Water.
Jesus is like, I'm walking on water. Moses is like, fuck your water. Stroll right through. Because Jesus walks on water and everyone else is like, well, we can't follow you. Moses was like, everyone can follow me.
Exactly.
I don't know why I looked
was the
at
New
this
Yorker.
Is not Moses. Moses was the New Yorker.
Moses was like, fuck this water. I'm going right through it.
Yeah.
Because I'm always fascinated. I grew up in a family of artists, so I never had this experience of sitting there and being like, I want to be an artist. I want to be an entertainer, but I don't come from that world. How do I get in, right? So it always fascinates me. And you're from a place that, okay, Manchester isn't a small place, but
it's the second biggest city in the UK.
Right, but it's not necessarily like a total center for entertainment.
Yeah, I would say like our kind of cultural moment was in the 90s. So it was like when I was a child. But yeah, there was a time when Britpop was focused on like Manchester. But yeah, the UK doesn't particularly, which is weird given its heritage, doesn't value producing artists in a way that I think like there are cities, New York or like some places down south, where they're like, oh no, we are famous for this and that's what we produce.
But so did you have a moment where you had to be like, how do I figure this out? How do I get in? Or did you not? Did that never really bother you that you weren't part of that
world? That's interesting. It all came from university because I wanted to be a lawyer, and my school was like,
another lawyer.
I know.
There are so many ex-lawyers who turn to comedy.
I think what attracts you to it is the same as teachers. There are so many teachers, at least in the UK, who become comedians, and it's the same skills of controlling a classroom. It's the thing. I wanted to be a barrister. I wanted to stand up in court and
not a barista. Okay,
no, very different.
That's a different thing.
Very different.
Although we love baristas here.
We do indeed.
Yeah, you would have been a great barista, I'm sure.
Thank you.
A rapping barista.
Every time I go into Starbucks and I ask for water, the baristas always annoy me because they'll go, "What?" And I'm like, "Water." And genuinely, people just don't understand. So it's the one time I have to put on an American accent.
Yeah.
So I'll be like, can I have English breakfast tea, milk on the side, and a glass of water, please? It's so annoying.
It's the same in Germany.
They don't think it's weird.
No, they don't think it's weird. Of course not. They think you're putting on the British accent.
Yeah,
they're like, here comes this guy again.
Whereas,
you're
water
from Britain.
in an American accent is hard to say.
Water.
It's hard to say.
Water.
To swallow that T sound, although we love swallowing tea.
But it's the same in Germany. I remember going into a store and being like, haben Sie Red Bull? Do you have Red Bull? I said it like the correct way because it's an English word, Red Bull. And she was like, what? And I had to say Red Bull.
You didn't have to say Roten Bull?
Roter Bulle? Haben Sie Roter Bulle?
Roter Bulle sounds like a German football manager.
It does sound like a German football manager. So you were just talking about getting into entertainment or not coming from that world.
So went to university, specifically went to Oxford to study archaeology and anthropology because I wanted to be a lawyer, and the law firms I'd done work at said, don't do a law degree. And it was like everyone did this at the time. They wanted you to get a different degree to show that you were wide-ranging and smart, and then do a law conversion.
Wow. I mean, this is just blowing every American's mind right now.
You can afford to do that in the UK because this was back then, it was capped, so it cost like very little money to go to university. If you go to Oxford or if you go to like a university which is perhaps not as prestigious, you paid the same amount of money.
They're like, prove that you can split an atom and then you can work for the post office. Okay. That's crazy.
They wanted you to pursue what you enjoyed. And I couldn't pick a subject. And so archaeology and anthropology kind of straddled the sciences and the humanities. So I was like, I'll do this. And it was when I saw the Oxford Imps, who are the improv group that I first joined, I saw them perform. I was like, this looks amazingly fun. I'd seen Whose Line Is It Anyway a bit. We had like the British version, but the American version was the fun one. And so I auditioned, I got in, and then the auditions were like 110 people for 6 places. And so we get in and our director's like, hey, you guys are funny. Well done. You're just funny by getting in, that means we think you're funny. So we're just going to kind of sharpen you a bit, but you can go on stage and be funny right now. And I was like, oh, I guess, am I funny? Cool.
That's nice.
So through the improv, I started doing stand-up because my director was like, hey, you're a bit selfish when you improvise. And I was like, oh, okay. And he's like, you should do stand-up. And that way you'll get out, you know, you can do your jokes. And then the improv, you'll be a better, more supportive improviser.
Do stand-up.
And there's definitely there's a tradition from Oxford that, like, you know, Oxford and Cambridge is where Monty Python came from. It's where Blackadder came from. There's loads more contemporary and recent people. And obviously that's kind of, it's a slightly dodgy world because in British comedy, it used to be that if you don't go to Oxford or Cambridge, if you're not part of the old boys club, you're not going to get on the BBC.
Right.
I've not been on the BBC, so I'm fighting that stereotype.
You haven't?
No. I've been on the radio, but not any of the BBC shows. So you know, I'm really showing that you can. It's not all it's cracked up to be. I'm just not funny enough.
So you really thought you were going to be a lawyer, aka a British barista.
Yeah.
And it was all about the wig though, really, wasn't it?
Oh my God, those wigs are so fly.
Those wigs
They're
are so fly.
Yeah.
No, so you really thought that, and you thought like, oh, the freestyling and the stand-up is a hobby.
Yeah. And then within my first year, I kind of did 20 gigs in my first year. But I had a friend who did 200 gigs, and he was like, I'm gonna be a comedian. And I was like, cool, great. And he was really funny. And I was like, he's very talented.
His name is Ricky Gervais.
Yes. He was held back somewhat at university. And then I did, my first year, I was in a couple of competitions. I never won any, but I'd get to the final, I'd get a couple of reviews, and I was like, oh, this is nice. This is fun. And then a guy called Sean Olney, who was an agent over there, saw me, and he said, you should do this as a job.
Wow, okay.
And I'd been recommended to him by two of his clients who were two comedians that I thought were so funny. Mm-hmm. And I still do. And he's like, I will rep you, and I won't take money until you're making money. Until you're making some decent money, because I think you should be a comedian. I was like, but I'm going to be a lawyer. And he's like, just give it a thought. So I had a few months where I was coming up to graduation, and I had job offers from sales firms, and I was, considering doing, the law conversion. And he had said, you should do comedy. I think you could make a living from comedy. And at that point, I was really enjoying comedy. And I was like, you can make a living doing this? And so I was like, okay, I'll give it a go. So I spent 2 years trying to just do comedy, and it kind of all clicked eventually in 2013. And I was like, oh, I have enough money from this that I can afford to live on this. Because, there is no student debt in the UK. At that point, it was very minimal student debt. The government gave housing benefits. I claimed housing benefit for 6 months because I was trying to be a comedian. And they were like, oh, cool, you're trying to get a job. Well, we'll help you with your rent. We'll help you with these things. And that, you can't do that anymore. They closed all that down. But because I was trying to get a job, they're like, cool, we'll support you for 6 months. And then after 6 months, you maybe need to work part-time. So I started working in a taxi office, doing various things for them. And
like what? Like dispatching?
I did their marketing.
For taxis?
I was marketing the taxi. And the guy who ran that taxi office was absolutely bonkers.
Why?
An unstable man on every level. So I mean,
I want to see the British version of Taxi now. The show. Oh
well, he was a fucking idiot, because he was like, we need to market these taxis. I was like, cool. Do you know how I'd market? I was like, you know how I'll market? Well, Oxford is a very competitive market for taxis. There's a couple of big, this is all pre-you, but there's a couple of big companies, and he was trying to get in there, and every taxi company was called Queen Cars, Royal Cars. And so he's like, okay, cool, we're going to start Prince Cars. I'm like, great, cool.
Oh
Prince Charles Pun. He's like, what? I'm like, okay, no, not. And he's like, this is how we market them. And I'm like, no, let me say this. This is how we market them. We just buy key rings with the taxi's number on them, and we put them in every student's pigeonhole, which is where you get your mail. And every student has one. If there's something in there, the student goes there every day because you get assignments, you get your essays marked. I was like, if you put a key ring in there, people need key rings. Everyone got student keys. That's a great idea. Then our number's always on the key ring. And he was like, no. We give away helium balloons with our number on them.
No.
I was like, haha. He's like, no, seriously. I was like, that's a bad idea. I was like, who likes helium balloons? He's like, everyone. I was like, yes. I was like, yes, but who wants helium balloons? Children. Do children take taxis? He's like, no, but... And I'm like, do helium balloons fly away into the sky? Do helium balloons deflate? And then what? Someone's going to go, I need a taxi. Oh, there's the number. The people would take it on a night out, like, oh, now I know how I'll get home. And he was like, no, helium balloon's the way to go. So he did that. I then was like, you're an idiot. I went around to every hotel in Oxford, and I was like, hey, here's our number. For every ride you book through us, we'll give you 10% of the fare, give you a kickback. And people were like, is that allowed? I was like, no, but you'll make money from it. So then they started doing that, and then we got so many, he couldn't even fulfill the demand. And then one day he just came in and just berated the office manager, who was like the most timid, autistic guy. And he was lovely, but the guy comes in, he goes, you've been calling my wife. And the guy's like, what? He's like, yeah, I got loads of calls on my wife's phone coming from here. It's you. And he's like, don't you think that would be from you? He's like, no, why would I be calling my wife? We're like, why would he be calling your wife? And he's like, you're fired. And so the guy's like, okay. And then he goes, Chris, you're the new office manager. And I was like, no, I quit. That's insane. The guy's like, you can't quit. And I was like, yes, I can. It was the only time in my life I've ever said I quit, which is satisfying that I got once. Once in my life I got to go, I quit. It wasn't dramatic. But, and then I left, and then I luckily managed to get enough work doing stand-up. But I have had other jobs. Like I worked in a 24-hour supermarket in Manchester. It was horrible.
Why was it horrible?
Because I have this voice, and so I don't sound like I'm from Manchester. So every time people would go, you're not from round here, are you? And I was like, yeah, I live down the road. They were like, no, but you're not from here. I'm like, I was born here. I just don't sound like that for whatever reason. I worked the night shift. This is a 24-hour supermarket where one time a guy broke through the plate glass windows with a hammer. But it was like reinforced glass. So he's like hammering through. And as he's hammering, the security are like, well, he's trying to get in with a hammer. So they go and stand on the other side of the window. He breaks through. He's tired. They grab him and sit on him. And I'm just there going, it's a 24-hour Tesco. Just walk in with a hammer. That's the element of surprise rather than, ha-ha.
But he was just knocking.
Trying to smash down a window with a hammer.
He was trying to smash.
Yeah, he was.
He was trying to rob the Tesco.
Yeah.
He was a robber.
Yeah. He was a robber. Yeah.
Oh, he was a robber. The worst robber ever.
Yeah,
he was.
He was
a helium
terrible.
Balloon tied to his backpack.
He was like, I'm gonna get away in this.
John, what are you doing? Call your wife.
Yeah, I worked there for 2 years, and
that's
it was
wild.
It was just.
Why don't you have the Manchester accent?
Neither of my parents are from Manchester. My mum's from Worcester, and my dad's from Birmingham, and they just didn't. I don't know why I didn't pick it up. I mean, when I went down to Oxford, eventually everyone's like, oh, you're Northern. But when I'm up north, people are like, nah, mate, you're well posh. Where are you from? And I'm like, I'm from here. So the advantage is Liverpool, best place to gig in the United Kingdom. They hate Manchester. Yeah. Big enmity between them. And whenever I perform there, afterwards people will go, I can't do the Scouse accent. Mate, well funny. How funny. Where are you from? And I'm like, Manchester. And they go, and I'm like, no, seriously. And they go, nah. But like, I can have a good gig.
Pirates.
If I'm from Manchester, a lot of people over there, my gosh. Yeah, terrifying. They drink a lot of rum, we'll say that.
Yeah.
So I get away with being from Manchester, but they don't notice it.
So did you dream of America back then? Were you one of those people that, a lot of people in Europe grow up dreaming of New York and America and living here? Was that a big dream for you?
I don't think so, no. I don't think I didn't look into the future that far. I was like taking things as they come, but definitely like 2014, 2015, when I met my wife in 2013, because she was American, but not like, she's of America, her parents are American, but she grew up in France, she grew up in
cross-culturally.
In the UK, yeah, third culture kid. I was like, oh, this is an opportunity, we could live there. And she'd been a teenager in LA, and I was like, hearing stories, she lived in New York for some time as well. So I heard stories, I was like, this sounds amazing. And as a comedian, you do look at American comedy and think like, this is the kind of where the trailblazers are from, this is where the best comedy clubs are. And then, you go back to the UK after being here, and that's, you notice, I like my first gig back in the UK after performing at the Comedy Cellar for quite a lot. I came off stage and I said to the host, I was like, I'm so sorry. And he's like, what are you talking about? That was great. And I was like, no, that was terrible. He's like, you're used to American audiences. And I'm like, oh yeah, I guess I am. Because in the UK, they sit there and they go, you bring them on, like, we don't say credits. We don't say, you've seen this guy on blah, blah, blah. Because the audience are like, wow, what a big head.
Yeah.
you just got to be funny. But they sit there and they're like, make us laugh.
Yes.
Whereas American audiences are like, oh, I can't wait for this.
Totally.
More often than not.
Yeah.
So
totally.
going back and, you don't get that applause as much. You don't get.
Yeah, I've done the Edinburgh Fringe like 4 times, and you go, oh, I just whatever, it was my birthday, or I stopped drinking.
Yeah.
And they're just like.
I would say British audiences are like college audiences.
Yeah.
In that I've just done 10 days of college shows, and I'm like, hey, so I just had a baby, and all these kids are like,
they're like, oh,
why would you do that? Yeah.
Wow. But you say you want to become an American citizen just to make it easier. So it's not like a thing for you where you're like, oh, I want to be part of this country. I want to feel like I can't get deported. I want this like sense of like having a stake in America. You know what I mean?
I definitely
your kid is American though, right?
Yeah, she'll be American British. She'll be.
Right.
I don't.
Are you teaching her British?
Oh, yes. No, we're teaching her. I talk about this on stage. She will be brought up to say the date the British way. Okay. Because it just...
The date?
The date.
Oh, so the day first and then the month.
Yes.
That's how they do it in Germany, too.
I find that preposterous that here they're like month, day, year.
The worst thing in Britain, though, is the times. Half six is 6:30. That makes no sense. It should be 5:30.
That's true. We do it the wrong way around.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
It should be 5:30, half of 6.
My point of this on stage is I'd be like, Americans, you guys are idiots. You say month, day, year, apart from one day of the year, Independence Day, when you say 4th of July. And I'm like, fuck you. You don't get to leave our country and keep our date. That's not fair. So she'll be raised that way. But when I go back to the UK...
She'll be raised that way, hating Americans. Anyway,
I really feel sadness when I go back to the UK because I see the country in my head as how I remember it when I left, so pre-Brexit. And I go back now and I'm like, oh, this is the poverty's worse. Like the UK is going through a terrible time at the moment with fuel poverty, and people literally cannot afford to eat. They can't afford to heat their homes, and the government is doing nothing to help it. And
what do you mean? They're going to barbecues. Doesn't that help?
Yeah. I feel like ashamed.
Sarcasm.
I feel ashamed when I think of that. Whereas over here, this ain't my country. So I moved here and Trump got elected. And I was like, dumbass Americans. It's not me. It's not my country doing it. Now when I look at things, I'm like, wow, Americans, the police shooting black people, like people, opioid crisis. I'm like, it's not my country. So I don't feel ashamed of that in the heart way. Obviously, it's horrible, right? But in the UK, I'm like, that's where I'm from. That's my country doing that. Here, it's not my country. Even if I'm a citizen of here, it's not where I'm from. So I don't have that kind of shadow over your soul where you're like, once again. But then, it doesn't work the other way. I don't see Boris Johnson in Kyiv walking around, and I don't, the Ukrainians are like, wow, the Lion of Kyiv, can't believe he came here. And I'm like, that is, objectively, that's a brave thing to do for him as a head of state who doesn't have to risk his safety. He went there. But I don't go, wow.
Who's
a brave British person.
The Lion of Kyiv?
Who
said that?
That's Ukrainians.
That's the guy who got fired from your job who's now in the marketing department in the fucking British parliament. He's like, we need a balloon that says the Lion of Kyiv. Helium.
I think it's just because his hair is so,
Who, Boris's?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
But I don't feel pride in that. So it's, it's a British thing to not take pride in things that we do that are genuinely good. But have we done anything genuinely good for a long time?
That's kind of a protective measure, isn't it? I mean, this is a whole nother conversation, but not taking pride, not being too overly enthusiastic protects you from disappointment.
I think it does. Yeah. And maybe that's why we don't like being all boastful as well. Because also there's always that thing that's going to prick you and go, yes, but think of all the terrible things you did in Kenya. Then you're like, oh yes, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that we did that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't feel of here, and I'm not yet. When I become a citizen, I definitely won't be like, oh my gosh, the American flag. I'm so proud to be an American.
Well, they ask you if you are willing to bear arms for the United States of America if the law requires it. You have to say yes.
I think I've aged out of that.
Nope.
No?
No, I just did the test like 4 months ago, and they ask you that.
And you had to say yes.
If you say no, you don't get the fucking thing.
When I did my green card interview, my wife was with me to prove we're married. And the woman asks all these questions, and my wife's standing next to me, and she's asking questions. It's just really simple things and really basic things. And then she just goes, "Have you ever killed anyone?"
What?
And my wife just goes, "Huh?"
Oh my God!
And I said no, and the woman looks at my wife, and she goes, "I'm sorry. It's just that who says yes to that?" And she says, "Well, I just had a guy who said maybe, not sure." I asked him why, and he said, "In my country, civil war, I throw grenade into enemy position. I don't know if they die." And my wife's like, "Oh, I'm sorry." And the woman's like, "Yes, I would appreciate if you don't laugh for the rest of the interview." And I'm there like, holy shit, that's so tough.
There you go.
And then she was like, "Would you throw a grenade into America?" I was like, "Yes, I would for America. I'll do
Exactly.
it for Uncle Sam."
That was the trick question, exactly. All right, well, speaking of trick questions,
Yup.
segue, you may have heard of the Proust questionnaire. Well, you know what? It's time for a new world order. This is the Pohl questionnaire. Anything that comes to mind, first thing, you have 5 seconds or less to answer each question.
Questionnaire. I've never, what?
Oh, they didn't teach you that at Oxford,
because
did
it's
they?
French, dirty French.
Le questionnaire de Pohl. So, yeah, anything that comes to mind, if you don't answer a question, you get hit in the head with the rubber chicken and you immediately get expelled from the country. No, that's not true. Okay, are you ready? Chris Turner.
I'm so ready.
Are you ready for the ultimate immigrant questionnaire? The Pohl questionnaire starts now. In a movie about the Statue of Liberty, who would you cast as the Statue of Liberty?
Maya Rudolph, but that's just because I saw a gif of her as the Statue of Liberty leaning on a building.
Okay, great. Accepted. We love it. Maya Rudolph, you've got the job. If you could add one face to Mount Rushmore, who would you add?
My face.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Maya Rudolph again.
No, my face.
Your face?
Yeah.
Amazing.
Doesn't everyone say that?
No.
Wouldn't that be... well, actually, that would actually be terrible because people hate Mount Rushmore now, don't they? Because it's like on Native American land. So therefore, that would put me down in history as a very bad guy. So also, the only other person who said he wanted to add his face was Trump. So I guess that makes me, your favorite comedian.
Okay, so you're sticking by that?
If I
or you're retracting the answer?
I don't know enough about American history.
You don't? It could be anyone.
No, anyone at all. Mm-hmm. I would put... no, I'd put my face on it.
Okay, still your face.
Yeah,
Great.
still my face.
All right, fine. What is the most American thing you've ever done?
Ooh, the most American thing. I mean, it's taken longer than 5 seconds because I don't particularly know. I mean,
well,
it's
not an American yet.
No, exactly. I've never invaded another country for no real reason other than oil.
Oh, I love that a British guy says that.
We just followed along. We just did what Georgie Bush said.
Okay.
No, I wish I had an...
Oh, no,
I do have something. I do have something.
Go ahead.
I did a road trip from LA to Vegas with my mom, and when I got to the dealership, the guy was like, "Hey, we can upgrade you." And I was like, "What can I upgrade you?" He's like, 5-liter convertible GT Mustang. And I was like, that sounds pretty badass. I was like, that sounds pretty cool. And that felt very American. And he was like, "Yeah, is it for a special lady?" And I was like, "Yeah, it's a really special lady in the road." He was like, "This will really get her purring." And I was like, "I'm down to get my mother purring." And he was like,
He
"Oh,
said that?
he said it will get her purring."
Wow.
Which I think he wanted to say something else. But
you bring out some interesting things in people. That'll really get her purring. And you were like, "Yeehaw!"
Yeah, motherfucker.
What is the most British thing you've ever done?
I did an advert for the tea company that I love drinking. So there is a Yorkshire tea rap where I'm rapping.
Can you
about
rap
Yorkshire
a little
tea.
bit of it? Do you remember any of it?
Yeah. So it's about a guy who makes the tea in his office.
Mm-hmm.
So the opening lyrics would be, "The office is my hood, I call myself the head brewer. My homies call me Colin, the perfection pursuer. In the morning, I can't remember I'm like, the office is TJ, take requests from the floor. My haters ride a Benz, I got a low rider trolley. Every cup is heaven, if you're good you get a brolly. The ladies, they all love it and they flock to my car. Give them 50 shades of gold when I whip out my colour chart." So that was, we did this. It was great. And it got a retweet by Russell Crowe because we name checked him in it. I can't remember if that was it. If there were Oscars for making tea, I'd be Russell Crowe. Each cup is tailor made like a suit from Savile Row. It was a really fun advert. And doing a rap about tea that was then enjoyed by people online. That's very British, I think.
That's very British.
Yeah.
I love it. Very, very British. If you could add one amendment to the Constitution, U.S. Constitution, what would it be?
Ooh, I've not studied it. Can we add an amendment that unamends the right to bear arms?
Yes, we can.
That seems like a sensible thing to do.
That's a popular answer. Okay.
Oh, sorry. Oh,
No,
such a
that's okay.
boring boy.
No,
Everyone's
not
like,
at all. That's fine. That's
no,
fine.
what amendment would we add? No, I mean, that just seems like a sensible thing. Or just it's so boring to be like an actual healthcare system that works.
No, I don't think that's boring.
Coming from the UK, it does anger and upset me that it's just the healthcare system is impossible and
Yeah.
So yeah, that
Healthcare.
one.
Okay, I love it. What American food would you ban if you were president?
I really, really dislike the brine hot dogs. The hot dogs that it's going to upset you, like Frankfurters.
Oh,
essentially, but the ones
like in
that
the water?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
They're disgusting. Like I love.
How are you supposed to make them?
Exactly.
They're boiled, aren't they?
Yeah, I love a bratwurst. Like a proper one is great, but like
You want grilled sausage.
Those American hot dogs where it's like in a bun and it's just like a slimy little.
You don't want hot dog water.
No, it's a
Okay.
disgusting
All right.
texture.
Okay.
What's in it? And that is, also PB&J can fuck right off. What a vile thing it is.
Mike just died.
Well, no,
and,
because peanut
thanks a
butter
lot
is
for killing
disgusting.
Mike.
It's horrible.
Oh, no.
I'm not allergic.
No.
I'm just sensible. Why is that a thing that we enjoy?
No, you guys deep fry Mars bars.
The Scottish
in the UK.
do, and they're very sensible.
You love Scotland.
I do love Scotland, partially because, well, there's some places you can go, they'll deep fry anything you bring them. No,
said
peanut butter
PB&J.
is... It's because it's bad peanut butter. Good peanut butter tastes fine. Like good almond butter
It's
is
because
brilliant.
you're pronouncing it peanut butter. You have to
Yes.
say peanut butter, and then you'll like it.
Yeah,
Trust me.
well, in Manchester, we would say, peanut butter, butter, mate, butter. My sister,
Wow, that's-
lovely accent, because she used to proper go mank on the word butterfly. So I'm like butterfly, and she'd go, a beautiful butterfly. So yeah, PB&J.
All right. Well, we don't know. This is getting dicey. I have 2 more questions, and then we're done. If you could deport one American person, who would you deport?
Ooh. I don't know if I have enough. I mean, okay, well, Mitch McConnell feels like the architect of all what's been going wrong for the last however many years. So him, but I think he'd still find a way to work his
Crawl back in?
weaselly ways. Yeah,
Think so? He'd turn into a lizard and
he's
slip back in.
already a reptile, isn't he? He's already
Exactly.
a straight up turtle.
All right,
so
Mitch
him.
McConnell, goodbye.
Bye,
And finally,
Mitchie.
most important question of all, do you know how I can meet David Hasselhoff?
Realistically, keep asking enough people that question, and someone would go, "Yeah, I got a thing."
Yeah.
I feel like he's
Yeah, I
the
got
type
his
of guy
number.
that would
Maybe
do
you'll
that.
run into him in Vegas. We didn't get to talk. We're running out of time.
Yeah.
We didn't get to talk about the fact that you're doing a residency with Cirque du Soleil in Vegas, which is amazing. If any of you people listening are in Vegas, want to go to Vegas, need a reason to go to Vegas, surely this is it.
Yeah.
Chris is doing a residency which starts when?
It starts May 12th, and it's called David Hasselhoff's Rap Stravaganza.
No,
it's called
not.
Mad Apple. It's at New York, New York. It is a New York-themed Cirque du Soleil show, and I am in it rapping. I'm coming on stage to the song Englishman in New York, and that's how they're justifying the fact that I'm in it. I was like, do I need to put on an accent? They're like, no, we'll just play that song. And people go, we get it. He's English
so
in New
cool.
York. The entire creative team and performance team, I think there's like 2 New Yorkers on it. Everyone else is from like LA or Europe.
That's amazing.
It's all a smokescreen.
Well, I will try to come see you. You're there for 3 months.
Yeah.
That's a
May
great reason to
to
go to
July.
Vegas.
Such a great reason.
People, go to Vegas. Check him out. Also, YouTube at Chris Turner.
Give Chris Turner comedy, I think, or Chris PJ Turner. But if you just Google,
you just
I hate that
Google
my
it.
initials are almost PB&J. That sucks. if you just Google Chris Turner rap, then I come up and
Find the website, the Instagram, Twitter,
Yeah.
YouTube, TikTok.
and then come and see a live show. And when I'm like, hey, what do you want to rap about? Be like, peanut butter and jelly sandwiches are the best thing in the world.
Bring him a tea with milk in it
Yeah.
from Trader Joe's. And then after he drinks it, be like, nah, That was hot dog water.
No.
We got you. Don't do that. Chris Turner, this has been amazing. Everybody, please go follow Chris Turner on Instagram and everywhere else. Go to Vegas. Check out all his stuff. Chris, thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Thank you.
And for those of you who listen, please like, subscribe, rate, review, tell your friends. If you hated it, tell your enemies, tell your neighbors, tell everybody. We love you. Thank you for being here. Peace, love, and hair grease. If you liked what you just heard, don't forget to rate, review, subscribe, recommend to all your friends. And if you hated it, recommend it to your enemies. Thank you for listening to Immigrant Jam, the podcast with me, Lucie Pohl. Have a delicious and nutritious day.